Countryside came to London today for a rally by thousands of farmers against the government's inheritance tax.
It's not just a hobby.
Nearly 15,000 farmers have risen up in open defiance. 37% of the streets are frozen solid by tractors, and 71,000 farms are staring down total collapse. This is not a routine march or a symbolic rally. Police are trained to handle shields and crowds, but steel tractors don't flinch. At 9:20 a.m., the No Farmers, No Food group issued a blunt warning. This was just the beginning. They said if Star refuses to back down, this will explode into the largest uprising Britain has ever seen. Yet at 9:45, Dama still approved a move that stripped farmers of £300 million, completely legal on paper, but brutal in reality. London police instantly warned that any farmer blocking Parliament could face 1 year in prison. The farmers didn't blink. By 10:05, 5 massive tractor columns surrounded Parliament Square. Star was plastered with a new label, the worst PM in British history. He and the Chancellor had sworn they would never touch farming families. 1 year later, they slammed them with a 20% tax. For 500 years, farms passed from father to son without a single penny owed. Now families face a £400,000 bill the moment a parent dies. Star's response only poured salt in the wound. We made an exception for farmers. We could have taken 40%. That line hit like an insult. Within minutes, tractor crews warned they would dump 20 tons of manure straight through Parliament's windows if ignored. Police radios erupted in panic. We can't stop them. Our vans can't handle these machines. Analysts ran the numbers. Every minute of the siege was burning £2.3 million. All entrances were sealed. Against 1,800 tractors, police had no real answer. Then chaos jumped online. A captionless TikTok video went viral, showing armored vehicles rolling down a public highway. One comment said it all. They are deploying. The clip smashed 7.1 million likes in just 3 hours. Officials claimed it was a routine transport run, until another video of heavy hardware surfaced. Trust completely collapsed. Farmers shut down 3 major routes into London. The threat of empty supermarket shelves within 48 hours became terrifyingly real. For Stama, the farmers became a problem he couldn't swallow. Nearly 500,000 rural voters already loathe Labour on principle. Election after election, they vote Conservative. That's why Keir once promised, "Farmers are our big friends. We will not touch your tax reliefs." Once in power, the government pulled a full 180-degree U-turn, stabbing farmers square in the back. By then, the movement had exploded in numbers. Crowds shouted, "We won't surrender our land to Starrer. Lock us up. We don't care." Media outlets quickly branded them extremist groups. Farmers fired back. "You're robbing the people who feed Britain to patch a budget hole while somehow finding £8 million a day for migrant hotels." Outside Parliament, tractor drivers accused Stama of jaw-dropping hypocrisy, saying newcomers were prioritized over food producers. Opposition leader Nigel Farage pointed out that farmers deliver fresh food daily, but asked what? An illegal migrant living in a 3-star hotel funded by these same taxes too actually contributes in 5 hours? Then came the shocker. Tanks were spotted on London streets moving alongside protest zones. Insiders claimed internal MI5 channels were scrambling, asking, where did they even get the tanks? A union leader delivered a final ultimatum. You have 10 hours. Back down, or French tractor drivers will blockade the Channel Tunnel. Experts issued a brutal warning. 26% of Britain's trade flows through that tunnel. If tractors lock it down on both sides, losses could hit £350 million a day. Even if Stama retreats now, the damage may already be fatal. What began as a tax revolt is spiraling into a full-blown European crisis. A blockade of the Channel Tunnel is no longer some wild theory. It's a real and immediate threat. Diplomats in Brussels are already gaming out nightmare scenarios, quietly whispering the same line. Give the farmers whatever they want. If this spirals, it won't just hit Britain. It could smash all of Europe. Meanwhile, KMA stayed completely silent for 7 straight hours, reportedly convinced tractor drivers would just cool off and head back to their fields. That fantasy collapsed fast. By then, 23 more tractor columns were rolling in from central England. Suddenly, the opposition ripped the mask off Starr's true motive. The Prime Minister and Chancellor keep hiding behind talk of a fiscal black hole, yet the cash squeeze from farmers covers just 0.6% of a £22 billion deficit. When that figure hit the floor, the House of Commons exploded in applause. The humiliation deepened. Starmer was accused of a cold, deliberate land grab. Bankrupt family farms, scoop up the land, and carpet it with solar panels, all so he can flex at the next climate summit. At the same time, the state is torching £2 billion every year just to house migrants in hotels. Arrivals continue week after week, stretching housing capacity to the breaking point. Cities are full, hotels are maxed out, and there's nowhere left to put people. Nigel Farage stepped in with a brutal breakdown of the endgame. He claimed the cities are saturated and that bankrupt farmland is being eyed to build mass social housing for new arrivals. Here's the part that terrifies critics. This entire strategy is allegedly being funded by the very people Starmer is squeezing the hardest: farmers. The government waves it off as baseless conspiracy, but the numbers refuse to shut up. Analysts predict 1.5 million new arrivals could hit Britain next year alone. This isn't just population growth, it's a seismic demographic shift. Families with 3 or 4 children are common in the groups the state is pledging to house. With hotels completely jammed, officials are already scouting military bases, and now many fear lands stripped from British farmers could become the next wave of state-run housing zones. The opposition is no longer whispering, they're shouting it. This isn't about fixing a budget, they argue. It's about locking in a permanent political majority. Starmer has openly demanded a decade in power, claiming he needs 9 years to fix the country. Critics fire back. He needs 9 years to replace the electorate. Look at the timeline they're laying out. A farmer collapses by April 2026. His land is gone by 2027. A migrant arrives today, gets housing immediately, and citizenship within years. By the time Starmer runs again, swing seats could look completely different. Conservative heartlands in the Midlands are now accused of being lined up for liquidation. The rural voter, rooted in property rights and tradition, is seen as an obstacle. Starmer doesn't want their vote, critics say. He wants to neutralize it. Instead, he's accused of importing a new voting bloc, one dependent on the state for housing, income, and survival, and forever loyal to the party that opened the doors. It's described as a cold transaction. Trade a self-reliant farmer for a state-dependent voter and let demographics do the rest. The average British family is shrinking. 1 child, maybe 2. Birth rates in rural areas are collapsing. Compare that to the families now housed at public expense in 3-star hotels, and the shift accelerates fast. Families arriving from the Middle East and Africa are not shrinking. They're growing fast. 3 children, 5 children, sometimes even more per household. Critics say this isn't just immigration anymore, it's basic math. They warn that within 15 years, villages that voted conservative for generations could completely change. What was once a rural stronghold becomes commuter housing for new citizens who overwhelmingly back labor. That's why the cabinet barely reacts to the protests. According to opponents, they aren't worried about today's polls or even the next election. They're thinking long-term, the next generation. The claim is simple: import a future voting base and lock in power for decades. The tractor tax becomes the tool. Clear the land, rezone it, then build housing. Remove the conservative landowner and replace him with a state-supported tenant. Critics call it the largest political reshaping project in modern Western history. Starmer isn't scared of losing farmers, they say. He believes he no longer needs them. The map isn't changing through debate, but through replacement of communities. Opposition voices argue every vote that lands represents a future ballot. Every farm that collapses wipes out another rural vote. They claim the government is building a new population because the old one has stopped believing the promises. Starmer, they say, can't win the argument, so he's changing who gets to argue. Farmers become the first casualties in a war over the country's future identity. Look at the contrast critics point to. A British farm worker defending his livelihood is banned, threatened, and criminalized. A rural family driving a tractor to plead for survival faces riot squads on standby. Yet illegal arrivals crossing the channel, many without documents, receive housing, legal aid, and support. Deportations stall unless media pressure becomes overwhelming. Even then, delays pile up. Rural Britain sees this as financial apartheid. Taxpayers feel betrayed, and the backbone of the countryside begins to crack. When a government funds non-citizen housing by liquidating the assets of food producers, loyalty evaporates faster than public trust. This wasn't just gridlock, it was exposure. Several commanders, speaking off the record, confirmed the approach. Clear the roads fast, avoid negotiations, and never allow the image of a capital under siege. Optics came first. This is how a state operates when political risk outweighs public hunger. They didn't lack the equipment to move the tractors. They lacked permission. No green light to slash tires, no authority to arrest on the spot, no mandate to break the blockade without fearing accusations. When a government fears a hashtag more than empty shelves, functionality collapses. Britain, critics argue, is being dismantled carefully, legally, relentlessly. K-Dama built his budget on one promise. We will fix the foundations. Opponents say that promise has twisted into something darker. Agriculture is being weakened to fund welfare expansion for people who have never paid into the system. Every tax decision follows one brutal calculation. Can the working public absorb the hit so the channel crisis keeps getting funded? Not. Will this feed Britain? And so the boats keep coming. Hotel bills explode into the millions. The deficit swells. The family farm becomes the target to cover the cost. The government calls it tough choices. Critics call it national self-destruction. The electorate calls it theft, plain and simple. The rage isn't just out in the fields anymore. It's boiling inside the towns. Tonight, British citizens are staring at a brutal equation. The government taxes people when they die, yet subsidizes others when they arrive. The law can seize your land, but protect their right to stay. Your financial security is expendable. Their accommodation is guaranteed, no matter the cost. Resentment fractures a nation faster than any border. And tonight, that anger isn't just roaring from tractors. It's spreading through millions of screens. People are realizing they're paying for a system that's replacing them. This is how a social contract collapses. Not with bombs, but with spreadsheets and enforcement orders. When the M25 locked up, ministers inside Whitehall weren't thinking solutions. They were watching the polling numbers. This protest hit different. Senior officials issued a blunt order officers described as aggressive enforcement. Clear the roads, seize the keys, ignore the pleas of families facing ruin. A new label is even being floated, fiscal saboteurs. That's how they now describe men and women who only want to pass their life's work to their children. Whitehall didn't panic because of tractors. It panicked because the public started asking where the money is really going. While cameras focused on burning vans, a quieter deal was unfolding inside the City of London. Energy lobbyists are already circling distressed farmland maps like vultures. This tax wasn't a mistake, it was a notice. Critics say it's a forced eviction wrapped in policy language. Labor's clean power push needs thousands of acres for solar fields and turbines, and bankrupting family farms with a 20% inheritance tax clears the path. Stama isn't just raising cash. He's clearing land for industrial energy parks. Wheat fields get replaced with glass panels. They're trading food security for climate bragging rights. The farmer growing your potatoes is pushed out, while multinational energy firms pour concrete over the soil. Critics call it the ultimate betrayal, destroying the ability to feed the nation just to tick boxes on a climate spreadsheet. The hypocrisy is choking. Now supermarkets are being forced to rely on carbon-heavy imports shipped from thousands of miles away. They claim to be saving the planet while hollowing out their own island. And look up. Flight tracking data shows a 4,000% spike in private helicopter traffic leaving the capital. The donors, policy architects, and pundits calling farmers extremists aren't stuck in the chaos they created. They're flying right over it. That's two-tier Britain in one snapshot. If you're wealthy, you lift off above the consequences. If you're not, you're stuck in a city running low on supplies, policed by a force stretched thin. Global markets are already pricing in instability. The irony cuts deep. Traders who speculated on land values are watching assets turn useless because no one can reach them. A city powered by digital finance is being brought to its knees by analog machines, tractors live streaming from the streets. Accounts documenting police pullbacks started disappearing. Videos got suspended for inciting disorder. Stama couldn't clear the streets, so critics say he tried to clear the timeline. But the silence only got louder. When a government erases footage of its own capital, it isn't protecting people. It's hiding embarrassment. They're curating a version of reality where they're still in control. Britain imports 40% of its food, and Starrer bet imports would break the strike. He misjudged the unity of the soil. What emerged was a shared message from Europe's working class to Westminster technocrats. You can't globalize your way out of starving your own people. Hospitals have now declared code black incidents, not because of illness, but because catering trucks can't get through the steel ring around the capital. Officials were warned this kind of siege could cripple the NHS within 24 hours. Still, the pressure on farmers continued. Safe transport couldn't be guaranteed through the gridlock. Tourists in Trafalgar Square are snapping photos, not of monuments, but of a government boxed in by the people who feed it. The city of London has turned into a ghost zone. Offices sit empty as commuters realize no train or bus can punch through the blockade. The smell of designer coffee in Mayfair is gone, replaced by diesel and damp soil. Office managers are reduced to directing foot traffic, quietly admitting their authority ends where tractor tires begin. Farmers sleep in their cabs, eat packed lunches, and wait for a prime minister who refuses to show his face. Delivery apps flash zero availability everywhere. Not a software bug, but a very physical shutdown. If this shook you, don't look away. This story isn't finished, and what happens next will change everything. Make sure you subscribe, stay locked in, and keep your eyes open, because the next update is coming fast. See you on the next one.